Hello and welcome back. And once again, a big thank you for all the memories you've been sharing and the feedback on the conversations to date. People are still telling me about the first records that they bought in Carlin Records in Hill Street in Newry. Keep those memories coming. My guest today is a Newpoint player who still loves to record and tell stories. She's an actress, an award-winning stage lighting designer, an investigative journalist, a multi-platform broadcaster on television, radio and all things digital, and an open sea swimmer, although she does insist that I clarify that she's an amateur open sea swimmer. In the deep end, an in-depth conversation with Dearbhail McDonald.
I had a big job change about 2 years ago, and at the same time moved from city centre in Dublin, where I've been living, out to Howth on the coast. It was just meant to be a temporary move, just to see was it a different dynamic from the city, and moved out to Howth. And yeah, when lockdown hit, I live on my own, so lockdown is actually it's very challenging. I'm sure everybody has challenges when they live with lots of people, but it's a big challenge when you live on your own. And I started sea swimming. Now, when I say sea swimming, my definition at the time of sea swimming at the beginning of lockdown was in, get your shoulders wet, get out. But
Brilliant.
I just took up a love for it, and I'm training for my first 2 kilometer swim.
Oh,
In
excellent.
October, I'm going to be swimming Killary Ford, and I'm doing open sea swimming lessons. But it really became during lockdown. I got adopted by a great set of women here in Howth, and we just started sea swimming together. And particularly during those tough times, the 2K, 5K, all of those restrictions, sometimes that was the only kind of people I really got to see in any given week. I used to joke that we'd kind of swap the boys for the boys, the BUOIS, as in the orange plastic things that kind of guide you around. And it sort of became my water cooler fix. But I love it. It is like it's free counseling. It is
Yeah,
free
yeah.
counseling. It is just the most fantastic thing, and I've really got into it. And my twin sister Aoife, a fellow New Pointer back in the day, I think she thinks I'm having a midlife crisis, because a lot of my Amazon purchases still go to Newry,
All
and it's
right.
all life boys and wetsuit shampoo and all these things. But as I keep saying, it's cheaper than a Porsche.
Well, not only is it free, it's also freezing because my wife would really enjoy swimming, and she tried to tempt me to go for a swim in Carlingford Loch about a month or so ago, when I managed to get her toe into the water and then back out again. Then I got the rubber boots on, which allowed me to get in a bit further, but it was just too much. It was too much to go for that shoulder dip.
Yeah, there was one point there during winter when it was snowing and the beach was covered in snow, and we're going kind of across like utterly freezing just to get in. At that stage, you're just in immersion. I remember just thinking, these are not the kind of white sandy beaches I
Well,
had
you're
of.
in very good company around Newry area, because a lot of people go down open water swimming and around Warren Point,
Yeah,
Rostrevor.
I cannot wait to get to, I always say that, if ever I pass away, I want my ashes just, somewhere near Carlingford. So I've got the Mourns on one side, and the Cooley Mountains on the other, and I'm in God's country. But I can't wait to get back up home and to get into the sea, and elsewhere. I'd love to get to the Bridge Bar as well for a few old memories.
Charlie Smith was a great open water swimmer. He was always down at Sandy Bottom leading the way, and would always try to encourage people to get involved in that. You have a great sense of place. I hear your passion for the Mourns and the Coolies coming through there. You love this area.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And even though I left Newry, to come to university, I never went back to actually live there. Yeah, it's just in your bones. And the whole way during lockdown, I follow these amazing landscape photographers who just do brilliant escapes, and I just be like following their Twitter and social media accounts, watching them post lovely things of the Mourns and Cooley, and I just keep tweeting in God's country. I can't wait to get back. But no, Newry is, it's home, and like everything else, it just forms you, and everything you do in later life, there is just sort of that invisible and sometimes not so invisible thread that brings you all back. And I suppose that's one of the reasons why we're chatting even today.
Yeah, and one of the threads that sort of pulls together the conversations I've been having is the town hall and the arts centre and the parochial hall and performances there, and you were very much involved with Newpoint Players in your younger day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I first joined Newpoint Players. I think we broke the rules. You weren't meant to do it until you were sort of in secondary school. But Sean Trainer had taught with my dad at the Sacred Heart. And I think part of just my dad just not knowing to do with my twin and I just kind of in the summers, he was just like, God, can you not get them in early? And believe it or not, even though all my playbills are all off in an attic somewhere, I actually find the first play we ever did with Newpoint
Brilliant.
Players. And it's
Brilliant.
called Easy Pulls It Off, you know, and there was that triangle that you went to from, you know, the art center to the town hall to Friar Tuck's. Like that was
It
just
was,
sort of
wasn't it?
it was just sort of our life. And when I think back, you know, like my mom, you know, she would still say this, but my mom sort of had a joke when we were growing up. She used to say to my father, why don't we just give the child benefit book to Sean Hollywood? You know, she was like, see here, they're spending more time down there. Our first breakthrough play, and I have to say, probably one of the best performances I think we've ever done was our first really breakthrough was when we got cast as the Screaming Beatles fans in John Paul, George, Ringo and Bert, and our job each night was just to run through the back of the town hall, squealing our heads off for the Beatles, She Loves You, and then that was back up. We were also hippies in that, so for a period of our teenage years, we were allowed to go out buying herbal cigarettes because you were allowed to smoke them. But when I think about that, you know, that was kind of the first real play that I remember. But we were young kids and we were traveling all over the island of Ireland, still at a time that was fraught enough, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
in the north, you know, and there are things, there are places embedded in my brain. Some of them, yeah, sort of nightmares about because of later plays that I was doing. But you know, we were going to like Shercock and Strabane and Athlone and all of these places, you know, and it was interesting. Like, Sean was strict enough. If you were in an exam year, you couldn't, you know, kind of do the big show or whatever.
Yeah,
But he
yeah.
broke that on a few occasions, which I'm still quite cross about. But for reasons that I will now explain. But I was an okay actor. I was sort of in the sidelines, but I loved every aspect of it. And if it was an exam year and we couldn't do an actual play, we used to beg, could we go to the set? Can we go to the Derry one? Can we go to wherever else? But then there was one year you couldn't do a show. You couldn't light a show. And at that stage, I don't know how we got involved in lighting. It was just carrying lights and the whole lot. But anyway, I took a real interest in it. And of course,
Uh-huh.
we were very fortunate as Sacred Heart girls as well. You know, we had a really burgeoning, you know, drama school. Like Brenda Rankin had taken over from Kathleen Bell, you know, and we were just, so then I was hanging lights in school and doing everything. But you couldn't do, I think there was two shows that you couldn't light that fell to me. And the first was Waiting for Godot, which, as you know, has got 4 lighting cues in it.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's
and
the design. It's the design. It's not the
the
cue.
design, lights up, lights down, act 1, lights up, lights down, act 2. But it is all about the design. So you couldn't do it. So I ended up lighting that. Now, and I think I was 16, maybe 17, traveling all over. There was one night we went to Dundalk and somebody flew off a ladder that got electrocuted, you know, and Sean Trader's going, come on, just keep going, you know, and I'm like this young kid, but I had such a wonderful experience. But I remember there were that play, which I won, and I see there's one in behind you just there,
Right.
the the beautiful Harp Lighting Awards. So Harp Lager sponsored Dundalk Drama Festival, and my mommy wouldn't let me take that one with me when I was leaving home. So that one's at home. But I won 4 lighting awards that year for Waiting for Godot.
Isn't that
And
brilliant?
yeah, it was amazing. And night after night, it was just mesmerizing. Like I can pick up that script at anywhere and just tell you, it was like poetry, it was like rhythm, and
Mhm.
this was my young brain being exposed to this. I also got to tour uh with, you know, Freel, for example. Sean Hollywood introduced us to all the big classics, but I
Yeah.
remember touring with Brian Freel's translations and being utterly just, you know, really taken in by it. And it was just, it was our social life, it was our real life. I'll give you a laugh. The Sacred Heart wasn't at that stage doing A-level drama, it wasn't on the curriculum. So the only place you could do it was in Uri Tech. So a group of us went and did it in lower, I was in lower sixth in the Sacred Heart at the time.
Uh,
And I don't know what my parents thought I was doing. I thought I told them I was doing an A level, but in any event, I was doing my 3 A levels at the Sacred Heart, and I remember going down and thinking, well, if I get a D in the first year, I might get a C or a B in the second year. But to everyone's great surprise, including Sean Hollywood, I got an A. And I remember coming home triumphant to my parents and saying, that's it, I'm giving up either history or something else. I got an A, I got an A. And I remember my mother saying to my father, Frank, what's she talking about? And I was like,
Settle
I got an
down.
A. And I was just like, and they were like, in what? And I said, my A level? And they were just like, what A level? And I was just like, what do you think I've been doing every Monday or whatever Wednesday night? And they were just like, we just thought you were with Newpoint. And that's what it was like. But the friendships, the experiences, like it was, when I look back now, it was like just such a special sort of, a really, really special childhood that has served me throughout my life.
But the youth group was very special as well, wasn't it? Because it was usually started the week about the 17th of July and then ran through until September. And the shows then put on in the Arts Centre or the Town Hall, depending on what the requirements of the performance were. But every day from 9:30 in the morning through until about 3:30, Sean was there guiding, shaping, developing, nurturing talent and giving it so generously.
And the commitment, like the absolute commitment that it took for Sean and all of those who helped and later then went on to direct these plays. Like when you look back now, like that wasn't like a summer camp where you get to do a week or 2 weeks of an activity. We had, that was our entire summer, and it was a serious commitment. Like you couldn't be going off taking holidays or anything in the middle of it. But you really got a sense that you were learning from a master. And I often thought, in another time or in another place, had Sean Hollywood wanted to go to London or New York or whatever, but sure, I think he was as happy in High Street as anywhere else. But his commitment to us as young children. And do you remember, what was the place, the Jehovah Witness Hall? Remember that one that we all had for a while up up near high, where do you call it? Remember the Jehovah Witness Hall was our
Oh, yes, on the back of Windsor Hill there.
up on the back of Windsor Hill,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
remember one play, I think actually was it Hiawatha or something? I forget. I have all of the scripts for these things. And Sean was terrified of bees or wasps, right? And the place was that run down, there was a nest of them in it. And this was the kind of like the madness we would go through. But he introduced me, for example, to to T.S. Eliot, to all of these great masters, and we learned such resilience. We everything. And I was lucky because I got to act, but I also got to play music in those plays. I also got to do the lighting. I got such a rounded experience of theatre, and almost went to drama school. Almost went to drama school, and in the end I didn't. I ended up studying law in Trinity, which is, law is quite dramatic,
It is
certainly
indeed,
it
yeah,
can be
yeah.
quite dramatic. But I remember a really deep sense of loss in my first and second year in Trinity. I felt lost because I'd had this childhood and teenagehood of just nothing but music, drama, everything. And then, and I kind of turned away from it actually in Trinity, because I did kind of feel that sense of loss, but it never really leaves you. Like I remember after I finished in law in Trinity, I used to spend my summers in New York in a J1, and sure then didn't I end up in the Irish Arts Centre with Pauline Turley, but once again you're back hanging lights,
Yes, yeah.
pouring wine, doing whatever it was. And it really, all of those friendships, but also just the fantastic people that we met that are still lifelong friends. Like, I mean, when people ask me about Newpoint, I still speak about it in the present. I still speak about that I am
Yes,
a
yeah.
Newpoint player, because I do feel that it is intrinsically in my DNA. And when I see, when I see all of the people that we knew back then, all have gone off and done different things, but there's something strange about it. It sort of pulls you back.
It does, and it's like walking into school again or walking into another space. Once you walk into the arts centre, you're back in time, aren't you? You're reliving, and all those shows that Our Day Out and John Paul, Ringo, George and Bert, they all start to wrap around you again. Drama at any, so many of them.
Like
Uh,
I can still smell the pancake makeup.
Yeah.
And I still remember, like, I'm making it all sound brilliant. I still remember some of the horrors that Sean put me through. So one year, it was an exam year. I was doing my A level, so you weren't allowed to do the show, and it was the Royal Hunt of the Sun. And if I was really, really bold, I could say that after doing that for one night, I could replace one of the words in one of those things, because we were. I said, "Can I go? I'd love to go." I think it was a Friday night in Derry, and Sean said, "Yes, yes, you can." This is after saying, "No, no, you can't." Yeah. And then he said, "But I think you should go down early in the car and maybe just help out." And I was like, okay, I should have smelt a rat. We got down to Derry. Remember the chicken and chips in the bar? Was it the Badger or something beside it? Mm-hmm. And that's what I was planning. I was planning a night of sitting back and then waiting for a gin and tonic when everybody finished. And Sean just said, "We've no one to do the lights, so you may go up." I hadn't had a script in my hand. I hadn't whatever. And I remember the stress of those couple of hours and the brilliant stage crew helping me out and sitting up that night. And I remember going into the dressing room beforehand and just saying, if you're not in light, you may find yourself into light. I think I lost several stone in that couple of hours, but the judge gets up at the end. And the adjudicator got up and he just said, something about how the lighting was atmospheric. And I nearly slayed off thing. It was one of the most stressful things I've ever done. But
the other thing with the lighting was you were there right at the beginning, because you had to get all the lamps, as you say, hung before the set went up, and you were there right at the end because you were taking your lamps down when the set came down again. And at that stage, everybody headed for the bar.
Yeah, but that was even a great, even that was a great, like when we were younger, the get in, the get out. And I remember coming home, as you would know, sometimes you might get back from somewhere like Derry or whatever to maybe 3:30 or 4 in the morning, and we were being returned to our beds as teenagers, having been off round. And Sean was insistent, and our own parents were insistent, that if you were involved in Newpoint Players, it couldn't impact on anything else. Yeah. So we'd like be getting up the next morning for school, having, but like just hanging out of it. But oh my goodness, we were well fit for it. And it's funny, Declan, actually, one of the things, that I did during lockdown, I tried cello lessons online, and it didn't work out for me as well as I thought. The sea swim worked out, but one of the things I did, and I surprised myself by doing it, was I did a playwriting course.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I did a playwriting course, just and that really, really surprised me. It was an online kind of, and I just suddenly felt sort of transported back, and it was brilliant, because it wasn't I'm learning French at the minute for an organization I'm involved in Paris. It's a cultural organization. And I find myself oddly being drawn back. But whereas the French is kind of like, and Sean Trainer, who was my French teacher, is quite traumatized by the fact that I'm back learning French, having been such a disruptive force in the Sacred Heart. But the theatre course was just something I just wanted to do. And I find myself being drawn back into that world, and it's fabulous.
Isn't that one of the things too about lockdown is it's been tough, really, really tough for so many people in so many different ways. But on another level, it's maybe given people an opportunity to sit back, to try different things, to experience different things. Prior to lockdown, this probably wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have thought.
Oh, I know.
To bring the stories of all of these people over 40 years of Newry Town Hall together, and hopefully it'll be a great social record going forward in 50 years time when people look at it.
And I think it's really important to record these conversations and the archives, like
wouldn't it be lovely to have one with Sean Hollywood? That's not there, or Sam Russell, or Owen Moody,
or Owen Moody, and he used to, when we were very young, Sean would have us terrified, because he would say, the president is coming today, the president. And of course, it was Owen Mooney.
You shouldn't have to be very young for that. It even terrified you when you were very old.
But the reverence that we had, for that, and I hope nothing ever happens to the town hall or the art centre, because what's contained within those walls and within those floors, like it was such a staple of our youth, all the feshes, whether it was Irish dancing or.
I was going to say that was fesh part of your growing up.
Oh, we were.
Did you dance?
Well, I did Irish dance for the Nolan School of Irish Dancing, but I had a typical Newry upbringing, which was I was in everything but the crib, So, very, very lucky, you know, I think, and I think actually Newry is a great city for that, you know. So, you know, so I would have been involved in gymnastics with Newry Gymnastics Club with Amanda Runker, would have been involved. I played music, so every week over at the music school out near the Downshire Road. I would have obviously played in the school orchestras. I played in the orchestra in Portadown then as an older teenager. Like, I mean,
Were you on the yellow bus that took you out?
every Saturday, yeah.
There's a story behind the yellow bus and the yellow bus journeys, and so many people
Oh,
music.
it was just so, and so many of us went on that. And the big crunch, of course, that happens when you're an adolescent is then you sort of start to have to choose, you
Yes,
know,
yeah.
and that was kind of very, very difficult for me. But it was just great, and we just loved it. And you know, when I look back now, like, I mean, like, my mum used to did laugh. She just said, just used to say we should just give him the child benefit book. But at the same time, I actually think that our parents gave us a great license,
Yeah.
you know, a great license just to go and discover and be. And we were in the company of great people, and we knew it, you know. And then later, when I was older, I got a chance then to work with the Ulster Youth Theatre
Hmm.
as well, and kind of, you know, carry those skills forward. But when I think back now, it's particularly when there's a lot of angst and worry about young people and resilience and everything, and I just look back and just go, oh my God, in the best way possible, we were allowed to run riot, you know.
Yeah.
But to come out at the end of all of that with, you know, as I say, like, if I hear Waiting for Godot, if I hear Brian Friel, I am back in the lighting box upstairs in the art center, you know, and all, like, I can channel all of that still.
Ethna Bell, when I was chatting to Ethna said, I feel sorry for people who don't grow up in Newry because the opportunities that we have and the experience that we had, with the Musical Society and Newpoint and Bosco and the Sylvan
Yeah.
Players and so
And I
many
should declare,
organizations.
well, I'm an Uri Bosco girl as well. Being a
Yeah.
McDonald, we're all there. And actually, my little nieces are staying with me at the moment. We went to see someone today, and out they were in their Bosco shorts. And I just thought, here we go
Here we
again.
go again. Yeah. Yeah.
It all ends. But it's kind of funny. When I was younger, I thought, and thought for a long time, that I was a jack of all trades and master of none, because I loved everything. I wanted to be involved in everything, and just kind of thought, will I ever, kind of choose something? And now that I'm just that little bit older, and I'm still kind of like that,
Yeah.
I'm still kind of like that, still sort of got a portfolio of interests and everything. But I will say one thing about, Sean and Owen and Eileen and everyone else. They, I had gone, I'd auditioned in London, Manchester, everything. I had applied for Rose Bruford for lighting. I'd applied for all theatre and education. And in the end, I didn't go. I ended up studying law. But Sean was never shy about telling us about the reality of the profession
Hmm.
and the difficulties and the challenges. So when I look, at when you look at the Lynches, when you look at Sean, look, all of those people that went and did it professionally, like, I have such a regard for them that they pursued their craft and honored it so well. And I just get so proud when I see them all succeeding. It's
Well, Sean
yeah,
was
it is.
brilliant. I mean, 36 years ago, Sean showed me a job ad in the Belfast Telegraph for trainee audio in the BBC, and I was helping out in the Arts Centre in Town Hall at the time, and he said, you should apply for that. And 35 years later, I retired from the BBC, and it was the job of my dreams, and I really, really enjoyed it. You were saying you nearly went to drama school, and taking on law, parking all of that dramatic world behind you, it must have felt, as you said, a big change for those early
I,
years of
I was
drama
low to
and
see
learning
my
your way in Dublin as well.
Yeah, so it was kind of a strange year. My mum and dad had split up, so that's a big, big, time in any young person's life. For all the running around and being an absolute pup, and my father not letting me drop an A level because I'd done the A level theatre studies. I ended up with now it went downhill after that, but I ended up with 4 A's at my A levels, and that both opened up a world, but also just sort of discombobulated me.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then you come under pressure, do something that you won't dare regret. And I have to say, I do not regret doing my law degrees. And I always say to people, it's the best degree to do if you don't know what you want to do. It was fantastic. Going to America is a big part of my life, and that really, really opened things up for me. And it was in America that I left law behind
Right.
after
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And I tried to think back to, well, what was it I loved, when I was younger. And my earliest memories, I used to direct fantastic nativity plays up in Greenfield Park in Newry. Like,
Yeah.
maybe that was my lost calling. I was good at directing those nativity plays, but it was all about words, and it was all about um, that creative expression. It was all about story. I was obsessed with
Love telling a
stories.
story.
Loved telling them, loved hearing about them, and that's how I ended up getting into journalism. I wanted to get something published, but I was thinking like a poem or something else. Long story short, ended up meeting a man from County Down, the late Fergal Han out in New York, who had a wee tiny newspaper called Home and Away. He took me on board. The first thing he did was sent me up to Gaelic Park in the Bronx to report on a football match, and the girls came off at halftime and told me what happened, and I went and duly typed it up. But Fergal Hannah sent me on my way in terms of journalism, and I was living in New York during 9/11. And that's, I suppose, what really, really made me want to be a journalist. I remember a friend of mine saying to me, when everybody was running away from, the smoke, the cloud, everything, he was just like, you were so, so drawn towards it. And I came home to do a master's in DCU here in Dublin. And I was teaching law that year, just tutoring law. Very nearly went back into law at that stage. But the early part of my journalism career, I did a master's in journalism at DCU. And the early part of my career was very much, do I go law? Do I go journalism? But I just loved story, and I got really, really lucky. I trained with the Sunday Times newspaper, moved on to the Irish Independent. I was their legal editor for many years, but I covered everything. I was a health correspondent, a religious affairs correspondent, the whole lot, politics. And I closed out my career with the Independent Group as the business editor. And my appointment as the business editor for the group coincided with Brexit. And that was
a
an
big
extraordinary
story in
time.
town, and still a big story in town.
It is. And as you know, because we both grace the same world, it's an extraordinary privilege to be a journalist or to be involved in the art of creating journalism, because, we get a lot of things wrong, but there's something so exciting about writing the first draft of history.
Yes.
It's messy, it's all of those things, but getting up every day to a blank page or a blank screen or the camera. And I feel very, very lucky to have witnessed what I have done and what I've done with my journalism, and in a way that maybe satisfy the dramatic side in me, in terms of writing these incredible stories. I remember my first book, somebody said to me, it reads like a TV, it's like a TV script instead of, but there was all of that. But it's funny now that I'm just that little bit older. Brexit for me actually was a big homecoming. It made me think about Newry a lot. It made me think about the upbringing we had, about living half of your life in a conflict and the rest of it in a peace. And, I feel very emotionally bound to that. And I feel a really, really strong homecoming, if that doesn't sound, too strong a word. And, and I'm hugely passionate. And obviously I was working with you and your colleagues up in the BBC and in Belfast, and seeing how much home has changed. And thinking back actually, Declan, to when we grew up, when we might have had to get a bus every Saturday to Portadown, but being part of activities where genuinely all of that was suspended.
Yes.
So, every Saturday playing our music and meeting kids from different schools, or with Newpoint, where all of that was suspended, and there were genuine safe spaces for us when we were growing up. And now that I'm older and I see, a new generation, nieces and nephews growing up, and yeah, the pull of home is very, 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 very strong, although it's hard to get me out of the sea here.
Have you ever considered capturing that time that you grew up in as a story, a play, a
Yeah,
music?
I write every single day. So the first thing I do every day, I'm a free writer. So I've been journaling for oh my goodness, maybe 15 years. I could probably get a lot of people into trouble with opening those diaries, but I do kind of capture a lot of that. And I've been thinking a lot, partly as a result of Brexit, about identity,
Mm-hmm.
not just in a political sense, but where we come from. And I see it now. Sometimes I have my nieces and nephews in the back of the car, and they love nothing more than when you're telling them stories about their mum when they were younger, everything. And sometimes when you're sharing those with them, and they are captivated, by it. And I suppose I have been, particularly during lockdown, when we have had that little bit of time to think. And sadly, because we're losing so much. That's why I think this archive, this what you're creating, this continuum of stories, I would have loved to have, to have captured conversations with so many people that were so important to us, in our youth. And we're losing a generation. We've lost, so many already. But to really capture our history, because I know where Newry sent me on my own journey, and all of us have those. We're all connected,
We are. It's incredible how
including you not being able to do those shows that let me
look at that, that triggered you into getting awards as well. But it's interesting when you say that, and the four of us, and Brenton and Declan Murphy, I was talking to Brenton, and they have captured that sense of place in their album Sugar Island. Where they very much talk about heading south for the summer or around Sugar Island, and that sort of. I said, Brenton, it was a bit like going to school. If you had to time it right when you were going up Canal Street for your ladies' girls coming down Canal Street, because you didn't time it right, you'd have to do a loop around Sugar Island again and go back up again. He said it was the same in Courtney Hill and Castle Street. You had to make that loop around and time it. But those great stories that they've captured in song, I think, are still there to be captured in everyone's story and brought into one.
And I remember doing a TEDx talk a couple of years ago, and and going, what am I going to do, like a TEDx talk on? I haven't created anything. I haven't. I'm not. And there was lots of things I could talk about. And then I was just like, well, what do I do? And I was like, I write stories. That's what I do. So I did a little talk called "What's the Story" on what I've learned about life from story, and I'm fascinated by story, by narrative, and I'm fascinated by people's backstories. Like, I mean, just recently watching Siobhan O'Hagan, as we knew her, but Siobhan Keegan, this girl who was at the Sacred Heart, who was our head girl, who we all just loved and revered. And now she's become the first female Lord Chief Justice in Northern Ireland, and you just go and you see all of these journeys, that people go on, and all of that just fascinates me. When I meet people and they're telling me their story, I want to know the backstory. I'm like, so.
Do you keep in touch with girls from Sacred Heart and St. Clair's?
Torture them. Yeah, I think we're kind of like, like little puppies or something. We can smell each other. We know we know when they're there, But yes, I do. And if I see any of our former colleagues, if I see them in the news or anything, I'll drop them a little note or try and get in touch with them. But like even that, the Sacred Heart connection, like, I mean, obviously prior to COVID, obviously COVID has changed a lot of things, but every week every month I meet my Newry girls for dinner. And some of them were in the same nursery school as me in Ashgrove.
Isn't that incredible? That's such a continuum of stories all the way through.
Yeah, through St. Clair. And I tell you what, if you're ever getting notions, they certainly put you right. And it is just so life affirming. So one of our WhatsApp groups at the minute, the Newry Girls one, has the Friar Tuck icon.
Well, Channel 4 made quite a hit series out of the Dairy Ones.
Yeah,
and I often thought about that. I thought there's the Newry One story to be told as well.
Oh,
there's your challenge. You've been on the course. Let's start writing.
The Newry Nooks one. And Joe's like,
I know a band who could do the music for it.
I know we could get a whole multi-platform thing going on.
Newry thing going here.
But what I love, Joe, about Newry, like I love. It just cracks me up. Do you know what I mean? And I love nothing more than getting home and having the night out with the girls. Like, I mean, we used to, like, every Sunday night to get to Lacey's, which would have been preceded by a few drinks in St. Catherine's down at the Bosco and everything. But I just love it. And it's funny, I have this grateful love for it, but at this stage now I've spent more time in my life away from Newry than being there. But to hear my little nieces and nephew now carry on the condition, one of them said to me a little while ago, it's just like, yeah, don't go near my mommy's car. And I was like, her what? Car. And all I could think was, remember the cars in Newry.
Big O.
Oh, I'd love to hear that again. It just cracked me up.
I was talking to Big O the other day down in Warren Point, and he's in great form. He
Brilliant.
Said his first comedy gig back again, so he hasn't stopped.
Oh, fantastic. But I do think, and I do agree with whether it was Leo Blaze or whoever said it, I think we were very, very lucky to grow up where we did.
Hmm. Hmm. It was
Very, very lucky.
there was a great sense of energy, I thought, especially for that age group. I think when you were talking about going to America and the years in America, I think that's been one of the challenges for that age group over this last 18 months. They've lost 18 months, and it could be 24 months, maybe longer, before we're out of it, of that opportunity to experience the world. That's what I was just saying today. You know, we saw, we were up Sleeve Donard and coming back down. There were lots of young people going up the bloody bridge and dipping in and swimming in the pools and things like that. And I was saying, years ago, they would have been off on Interrail, or they would have been going to America, or, you know, touring Europe. And
Oh,
they're
but don't
locked in. They don't have that chance at this moment. And if you lose those couple of years, once you get into the world of work, it's difficult to get that time back again. You know, that long summer once it's gone.
I, if I was education minister, I would insist that the minute you finish your A levels, you get sent off on a one-way ticket to find your way back, and the same for after you leave university. I'm a passionate believer that the best education is travel, and
Yeah.
it is very, very, very difficult on that age group. But you know, I also work with a lot of young people, and their resilience is fantastic. Like when you look back to, you know, the youth that we had growing up, you know, and you know, in the conflict, and you know, just kind of when you kind of describe to people that it was very, very common for, you know, for army to be in the streets, or you know, if you left your Tupperware box behind you, the little bomb expert robot came,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, to kind of blow things up. So a lot of things, for that was very, very unnatural for us. But I think, you know, I think young people are amazing. Like they're absolutely fantastic, and we will get back. Like when hopefully now that if we come out of this, it's been a very, very challenging period, but oh my goodness, like I as I said all to my, my young kind of nieces and nephews and godchildren, it's just like, you know, can you imagine when they're in their 40s and they're washing their hands relentlessly and their own children are saying, you know, what's the
What are
story?
you doing?
What are you doing? You know, but yeah, and that is the, you know, it is that Chinese curse, you know, may you live in interesting times. The curse of journalism is that there's never a time that's not interesting.
No, no. Every day when you're waking up with that blank sheet of paper, by the end of that day, it's brimming full of stories.
Yeah, you know, and you can be lost in a little bit of a bubble. And that's why the last 2 years for me have been really, really interesting to take a little bit of a step back and, you know, and take up some other work, obviously still writing. I think that will always be at the center of everything, you know, that I do. But no, it's good. It's good.
Listen, it's been a real joy
I
to talk to
know.
you, and thank you so much for sharing all of
Thank
those
you.
memories. And thanks for lighting Gatto and for bringing home the
You
award.
owe me. You owe me. But listen,
If
please keep these conversations going. And hopefully, when we're able to do in person things again, why don't we get a night in the town hall or the art centre? And we'll get good libel insurance for it. That we'll get.
I think we'll have a Dearbhail talks in the art centre. In fact, we'll have to book the town hall. There'll be not many wanting to come to it. Listen, if you when we come out of lockdown, is there one show that you would particularly love to light?
What I would love for the pure mesmerizing character of it again, I could watch it endlessly, would be Brian Friedel's translations. Yeah, I think I would. It is still a comfort after all this time, and yeah, I'd love to do that.
Well, Dervla, congratulations on everything that you've achieved. You went to law, you could have gone to drama school. I think you've managed to blend all of that experience and all of your ambitions into the you that is someone we look up to and respect so much. So thank you very much indeed for taking the time to have
I
it.
might come back to Dundalk to defend my title.